All right, that's all the business that we have. So I'm going to turn it over to Cole, our speaker for tonight. Are you doing an introduction?
I'll do a little intro. So, in my line of work, actually, it's an honor and privilege to introduce the speaker for the night. I get more than that. I get a friendship. I get an amazing family to hang out with. His daughter and my daughter are best friends, so I look at his kids kind of like mine. But Cole kind of shared a little bit of his story with me, and typically the person introducing gives a little bio, but that's why he's here, right? So I just want to say he's amazing, and kudos that his parents are actually here, and you better say something about them. I'm just honored and privileged and blessed to be part of Cole's, to consider Cole a friend and his family a friend. So Cole Uecker.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So I think Leslie's going to kind of watch if you have questions, but if anybody online has questions, just go ahead and ask, okay?
Yep, or any of you guys want to stop me anytime and ask questions, totally okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be loud.
Okay.
Like me.
I'll try. I'll try. So yeah, basically Amber invited me here to talk about my experience with foster care and what I thought worked and didn't work. And to go into that, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, my childhood. I was born in Jamestown and then raised in Valley City with a single mother. We were um, very, very poor, very poor. I lived in a trailer house. I remember winters where we would go a month without heat because we couldn't afford it. Um, I also remember once every 2 weeks going to the Capitol to get our wick basket. That would be our food. And she loved me and she cared for me, but she was either working or gone. I was home alone by the time I was 4 or 5. Left home a lot, and so it was bad at the time, but in a way, it made me very responsible. I was cooking meals by the time I was 6. I I with her not being around, I was able to do what I wanted when I wanted. The first time I got in trouble, I was 7 years old, and I actually rode my bike through the glass door of Valley City State College at 7 years old. So this is really hard for me now talking about it because I have a 9-year-old and a 14-year-old daughter. And so every time I talk about this stuff, I try to imagine 7 years old riding through a window into a college and vandalizing some computers and some other stuff. And so that was the first time I got in trouble. And then I got into the system, Division of Juvenile Services. So now they're keeping tabs on me. I nothing really changed. She was still gone and working. I did my own thing. Uh, there was times where I wouldn't show up to school, so then that got checked on my record also. By the time I was 11, right before 12, I was hanging around people that were 15, 16 years old. I'd started smoking already. I To impress these people, I was stealing, so getting caught for stealing. Stealing at that time, cigarettes were like on the shelf, and you could take them. And I had countless citations for theft, uh, and then it escalated. Uh, right before 2 months before my 12th birthday, I actually burglarized the gas station, and that's what actually got me pulled out of the home. That was the final straw. I It was kind of funny the way I got caught was I don't know if you've heard of Crime Stoppers at the time. There was like a $5,000 reward, and the kid I did it with, his older brother turned us in, and yeah, and so we thought it was a safe house, but he turned us in. He never got the money, but I got pulled out of my home. It was actually on my 12th birthday itself, which was December 5th of 1992. I My Kurt Brown was my DGS worker at the time. They told me they were going to come pick me up, but they didn't tell you when. And then so he showed up one day and he's like, "You got an hour to get your stuff. Don't grab a lot of things because you're going to get closed when you get there." And I got placed into a home on the range, which is by Beach. Thank you. Uh, and I got sentenced for a year and a half at home on the range. Um, and I have been to a lot of facilities, but home on the range is, I believe, one of the best ones in our state. They have a very good setup there. They have at that time, it was called a point system, where you got a card, and on this card, you had to get 10,000 points a day. And to get these points, you had to do good tasks, and you also had to do these things called role plays, which ask permission, report your whereabouts, follow instructions. In this role play, I'd grab a staff and I'd be like, I'd like to do a role play, and he'd be like, what do you want to do? And I'd say, follow instructions. Look at the person, say okay, do a task immediately, report back. There's 8 of them, and they're still just locked in there. At the time, I thought it was nonsense, but in the longevity of it, you start doing it. And so they had a south wing, an east wing, and a Casey Hall. And you start off in the south wing, and the better you do, you move up to the east wing, and you get to stay up later, maybe more rec time. Then you get to go to Casey Hall, where you actually have your own bedroom. And so I got sentenced for a year and a half. And when I was growing up with my single mother, I never met my dad or anything. And he found me, or the state found him because he never paid child support. And he came and met me when I was at home on the range. And he put on a good front about who he said he was, had a good job, family. And he talked home on the range into allowing me to go live with him in Omaha, Nebraska for if I could get out early. And so instead of my year and a half, I served a year, and I went to live with him. So he lived in Omaha, Nebraska. At this time, I'm 13, or just turning 13. We lived in Bellevue, which is a suburb of Omaha. And the school I went to, I was minority. And so this is a big shock for me. It was probably, I would say maybe 15% white, and then the rest Latino, and then African American. And going from North Dakota, going to the state called the Cornhuskers, I just never would have thought. And it was a big change. And so I want to say this too. When I was a kid, I was never defiant. I was always please, yes, thank you. Had a well-mannered, really outspoken. I just had no structure. So I didn't have a curfew. My mom never asked who I was with. I never had to call home and check in. And so that's when, hey, you want to smash that mailbox? Yeah, sure. And just I had no structure. So when I went there to Omaha, I got picked on in school. I got beat up a little bit. And then when I went back to home with my dad, who was supposed to be a good dad or had a good family, totally looked down on me, treated me worse than the kids that he married into the marriage. His wife at the time really did not want me there because I was his biological son, and these kids were not his biological kids. There was times where I was washing the dishes and she found a dirty dish, and she took all the dishes out of all the cabinets, went to the garage, all the dishes out of there in boxes, and I know I was cleaning dishes for 4 or 5 hours just because they found one dirty dish. Misspeaking at a table, I had to stand on a milk crate for like a half an hour. I don't know if you ever stood on a milk crate, but when you get off, it's like pins and needles in your feet. So they weren't like abusive, like totally physically abusive, but abusive in how they made you feel and doing the extra chores. And I did that for 8 months, and I couldn't do it. And I told him, I broke down. I said, I'm going to give up. If you don't send me back home or give me to a different relative, I'm done. I'm just going to give up. I'm not going to go to school. You have to drag me. I'm going to fight you all the way. And so at that time, I couldn't come back into North Dakota without a signed order from a judge. When I got pulled out of the home at 12, I had 33 citations and 6 felonies. And so the Judge Paulson out of Valley City, basically said, well, when they redid the thing for me to leave home on the range, they did this court order, you're not allowed back in state lines unless we have to go to court again. So I went to live with my grandma in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. It took, I would say, 3 months or so to get the court order process through and finally be able to come back home. So I came back home, and I did really well for 2 months probably. But the problem is when I went back home, I started hanging out with the old friends again. And one of the biggest things in, I don't know how to say this, but moving on or working on yourself or learning new and positive things is by changing your environment around you, which is definitely the people you hang out with. And so going back to the people I hung out with, I started doing the same things, except for this time. Now I'm almost 14. So now I'm doing drugs. Now I'm smoking pot. Now I'm doing opium. Uh, I'm stealing again. And that's how I got in trouble again. Is I got caught stealing at a football game. There was a school bus there of the opposing team, I believe Fargo. I went on there and I went through all the backpacks, and I probably got $400 or so. I and I got caught. And when I got caught, I blamed it on the drugs. Well, it wasn't the drugs' fault. I just used an excuse. I said it's the drugs' fault. I blamed it on them. I'm addicted. I need help, and I was hoping I would get a lighter sentence. Well, instead, what I got was I got sent to a crisis residential unit in Jamestown, which is not part of the building of the Jamestown State Hospital, but like an offshoot of it for troubled kids. And so I went there for 2 months, almost 6 weeks, 2 months. And they said, this kid's fine. He doesn't belong here. But I couldn't go back home. So that's when I came to Mandan. And now it's Youth Correctional Center, but at that time it was State Industrial School. And I stayed in Brown Cottage. And I don't know if any of you guys ever seen inside Youth Correctional Center. So Brown and Pine Cottage are two cottages that are for like high risk kids. This is where kids go that are hurting people, doing class A type of crimes. And I had a mattress about this big as this table. It was a little green mattress about that big, a sheet, and then a hard plastic pillow, one of those ones that water can't get in. And then I had a steel toilet with a built-in sink on top. And I remember that toilet seat, the water went through it, and it gets so cold that I have to stand on it before I sat on it because it's just ice. But that's where I stayed the whole time, was in that room. And since my list was so long, so remember, I'm please and thank you, sorry, can I do this? I was put at high risk, and I was on what's called ad hold. I was stuck in my room for the first time 2.5, 3 weeks, and I did not leave that little room. Once every other day, I got to go shower. Other than that, a tray was coming in, and you can have a Bible, but that's what breaks people, is not being able to talk to anybody, not even staff. You had a steel door with a little sheet on the window, and so they'd open that and check on you every 15 minutes. And yeah, 2 weeks of that, I was bawling, crying, didn't know what to do, thought about suicide, thought about all the things I did wrong, cried some more. And at that time, it was kind of a wake-up call, I guess, that something's got to change. I earned my way out of ad hold to where I actually got to go to the rec and start talking to people. And then they said, okay, sis is not for this guy, because now they got to talk to me. They're like, God, this kid says thank you all the time while this other guy's telling me where to go. And so they put me back to Home on the Range. And I went to Home on the Range. I was there about 6 months. And they call it your second hitch. Every time you go, it's another hitch. And Darren Nielsen, my social worker at the time, called me in, and he goes, have you thought about foster care? And I said, no, I plan on staying here and then going back home. And he said, you cannot go back home. Your mom loves you to death, but she just doesn't have the means to take care of you. And it's just not going to work out. So I said, well, I want to stay here. Well, you can't stay here. If you stay here, you're going to stay here until you're 18, and then you actually go to the pen for another 2 to 3 years. And I said, okay, well, I guess what's this foster care? And he goes, well, it's a really good program called Casey Family Programs, but you got to interview for it. And I said, okay. And even though I'm saying okay, I did not want to do it. I would rather have stayed in an institution than go live with another home because I felt uncomfortable going to live with somebody else's parents. Um, I'm not their kid. Why do they want to take me in their home? Am I going to get questioned for everything I did? Am I going to get watched everywhere I go? When I'm at school, are they going to go through my stuff in my room? These are all the things going through my mind. And so when you want to stay in an institution instead of go back to society, it's a mental thing. I mean, I didn't want to do it, but I came in for the interview. Casey Family Programs on Century Avenue here in Bismarck, and it was a big table. Um, were you guys there? And you guys, I'm speaking to my foster parents right now, and wondering if they're Ron and Janet Flick, rock stars. Rock stars now. When I was a kid, not so much, but um, okay, very uncomfortable. I'm sitting at a head of a table, and so the foster parents that are willing to take me, excuse me, pizza. Um, the foster family that was had an opening, I should say, and then the staff that Casey had, which would be some social workers, a counselor, and whoever was like running Casey at the time. There was probably maybe 12 to 15 people in there, and they asked me questions. Do I want to be here? And I was pretty honest. I was like, I'm really unsure about this. I've never done foster care. I want to go back home to my mom. I don't want to, or go back to institution. Um, and they said, we have a lot of opportunities here. Casey has a lot of opportunities to offer you. And I said, well, okay, I'll try it. And they said, with your record, you have the largest record that Casey Family Programs has ever accepted. And they basically said, we give you 2 weeks and you'll probably be out again. And I said, well, I'm willing to give it a shot. So um, there was a transition. I believe I came and stayed a weekend, maybe two, and then go back to home on the range. And then when I came to live with them, so I got to meet the parents. I didn't get to meet the kids. And then when I stayed these weekends, I come to find out that their daughter, she was number 1 in gymnastics in the state and number 5 in the nation. Their son was number 3 in the state for wrestling, and the daughter was a straight A student. The other one was CB. Um, but that was very intimidating. So I'm going in there. I don't know these parents, and they got these kids that are pretty much rock stars. And am I going to be compared to that? Um, I so I started living with them, uh, and I did things that I normally wouldn't just to try to fit in. I joined wrestling, got my butt kicked because I'm not a wrestler at all. I mean, I did okay, but I was trying to fit into the foster family. Uh, and then when I told them the things that I wanted to do, they were half supportive, um, and but made it feel like that I should maybe stick with wrestling instead of do commercial arts, or something like that, because they went to all the games, they did all that, wore the clothes. Um, and then when I was there, uh, so how old have I been? Just turning 15 now. Um, I set myself with some goals. I wanted to get a license. I wanted to get a car. I wanted to get a job. And they helped me out with that. And Casey Family Programs was also really good about this. Uh, they would pay for Don's driving school. So, because they want you to, okay, so one good thing about Casey is they didn't look at foster care as a place to stay. They looked at foster care as a place to learn what to do and develop skills so you can go out on your own. And they had all the programs in place to do that. And the way they were able to do it was One, they were funded by UPS. So UPS was ran by Casey Flander, something like that. That started, sorry, on his bike. I got to, when you join the foster program, you get to read the story about how he rode his bike and delivered packages, and he built up UPS. When he died, he put over half the shares of UPS to go to help kids that needed help over the U.S. And it started Casey Family Programs, which was 26 locations at the time. And the way they looked at it, I had the interview because you don't just take anybody. You take a handful of kids for a handful of parents that have been well vetted, and that way these handful of kids actually have a shot. So if you take 10 kids and invest $100 in the 10 kids instead of 80 kids and invest $100 in the 80 kids, your turnout's going to be a lot better. And that's or success rate. And that's the way they looked at it. So they were able to pay for Don's driving school. They my foster parents at that time actually no, they didn't co-sign for a loan. I worked. I was working Salvation Army and then Subway. And so they were giving me rides. So that makes a big difference. If you have a family that's able to give you rides, make time for you, and it becomes a pain. It does. But I had a goal to get a car, and I did. And where's I going with this? So I got my car, I got my job, and things were going good. And for me as a kid, any positive goal is okay. I kept working after I got my car when to put a stereo in it. And so I worked to get money to get a stereo. So if my 14-year-old daughter told me she wanted to spend $1,000 on a car stereo, no way, shut it down. And so as a foster parent, just to open your mind a little bit, it might not be what you want to spend your money on, but if he's working and doing okay and he wants to blow money on his car stereo, let it go. And yeah. And so and this was the first foster home I was in with Casey, and so I was working late hours. I was working almost 40 hours a week plus going to school. My grades started dropping, especially in chemistry. It was awful, and like 47% awful. And I another another means that Casey family had when my grades dropped like that, I was able to go to Sylvan Learning Center. Very expensive, but I turned that 47 into a B plus. And I don't want to say very expensive. I don't even know what it is anymore. When I'm talking, I'm talking over 15 years ago, or more than 20 some years ago. Yeah, it's expensive. But so those are the programs that Casey was able to do because of managing the groups of kids that they're working with and the groups of families they're working with. And so, and the other thing, when I was working like this and going to school like this, the foster parents I had at that time were very strict on the chores I had to do and the things that I had to get done. At that time, we had milk delivered, so I had to go grab the milk, the little milk box out front, grab the milk, bring it in, and one time I forgot, and I got grounded for 2 weeks. So I'm going to work every night. I'm even though I was failing a grade or a class, I was still C average. But I got grounded for 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And after that, about a month goes by, and I forgot to clean the lint out of the dryer. Grounded another 2 weeks. And so at this time, just turned 15, beginning of summer, they bought a lake cabin, and then they wanted to build this big deck, and I would see their kids invite their friends, and they were going out on the boat and doing things in the water. And this deck had to pile a bunch of sand in there. And so when they were out playing, I was shoveling sand into this deck, just shoveling and shoveling. And for some reason, I didn't even catch it right away. It took a while. It just seemed like they were a little bit more strict on me with their own kids. And it seemed to gradually get worse. And then I went from Subway to Subway to Taco John's, and met my girlfriend, and now my wife. Yay! And I was grounded all the time, and so I had no time to spend with her. And so I usually closed, which was around 11 o'clock, I think, at that time. And I would say I'm going to be home at midnight, when really I could have been home at 11, but really I was spending that hour to hang out with my girlfriend at the time. Well, my foster dad at that time found out, and he, when I got home, started yelling at me, "You're done." And I said, I've been done the last 3 months. I haven't been able to do anything. I'm doing everything I can. I'm not breaking the law. I'm listening to you guys. And he was like, "Nope, this is I'm not going to tolerate this." And I said, "You know what? No, I'm not going to tolerate this." I said, "I'm done, and I'd like you to take me somewhere else." And so what Casey Family Programs had was a system called respite, where once every 4 to 6 weeks, the child goes from its home and spends time with a weekend with a different foster family. It gives the child a break from the family. It gives you a break and your kids a break. And so during my time with Casey, I got to stay with 3 or 4 different families. And I said, "I'm done. Please take me to a different family for a respite." Okay. And then so when I did that, I told the family I went to, I said, "This is what's going on." I said, I can't do it. And the family I went to stay with that weekend was Ron and Janet Flick. And they, I don't, my mom or Janet has a really good vibe at reading people. And she just, after I told her what was going on, went to my dad, Ron, and said, "Hey, this kid's not a bad kid. Like, there's something else going on here." And so they went to Casey and said, "This is what's going on." And they said, "We would like to take him. If it's not going to work out there, we'd like to take him." So they asked if I wanted to um, stay with them, or if I actually wanted to, they actually give me the opportunity to go back to court to see if I wanted to go back home. But at this time, I realized, no, I don't want to go back home, because I was actually starting to realize the friends I was around, the environment I was in, is what gave me trouble. Plus, I had a really hot girlfriend here. And I was like, I got to stay here. And so Ron and Janet took me in. And it took a couple of weeks, and they were like, "This guy's doing great. I don't see what the problem was." And one of the best things about going to their home was, I think your own kids, when you bring a kid into your home, your own kids are just as big of an influence. And for their kids, or my foster brother and sister now, asking me how my day was every day, little things like that. "Hey, Cole, how was it today?" "Oh, it was good." Or if it wasn't good and I told them what happened, I didn't get judged. So have kids that I'm living with not judge me, give me a chance off the bat, not treat me like a criminal right away. I felt so comfortable, and feeling comfortable, I was able to be more honest. I didn't hide anything. I told them how I really felt, instead of bottling it up and going to my room and letting it fester and become something more. Uh, those were the biggest changes. And being in that environment, I was able to be honest. And when I was more honest, they're able to do more for me, to guide me to where I needed to go. And things went great with them. I actually graduated high school, and I then got a scholarship through Casey Family Programs that you had to apply for. And so I started going to school at BSC. I did Tech in high school and in college. And for a kid like me, ADHD, who got in trouble and couldn't sit still, push your kid to go to Botech because I did welding and commercial arts. Uh, and so, yeah, I went to college. I still stayed with Janet and Ron, and graduated college, staying with my foster parents. And then I said, okay, it's time for me to leave. And she goes, are you sure? And I said, yeah, I think so. And then, yeah, and then I moved out, but that was 21, 22 when I moved out. I still consider my mom and dad. Uh, so I moved out 21, 22. It was 23, 24 when my mom was cutting up my check card in front of me because I couldn't manage my bills. And yeah, asked you to help me. um, so, you know, the things that helped me a lot during the time at Casey Family Programs or in the foster system is I understand now a lot of kids are going to counseling a lot. And it seems like it's right away when they come in, you're setting up counseling, not even giving them time. The things that worked for me and for my peers, now granted, most of the peers that I was with were kids who got in trouble. I know there's other issues why kids go into foster care. But the things that worked for me and my peers at the time was maybe instead of going to counseling once a week, maybe get a pass at Huff Hills and take your kids out there. We went out there all the time. We also did south of Valley City in Catherine. There's a ropes course where you there's these ropes on the trees. You harness up and you go back and forth, and you get like 5 foster families together, and you have like one person take these group of 5 to 8 kids or whatever. In the new trust falls and things like that. Those are the things that I think are better and make a life impact. I remember all those things clear as day. Maybe I didn't want to go at the time, but I remember them. They helped me be a more open person, and I think that goes way farther and better than counseling, and probably even cheaper. Um, so I was lucky to have things like that. Um, I don't know. I guess anybody have any questions? Yes. So Amber was saying how when I was talking to her, I was talking about when you do respite, it's different families who have different traditions and do different things. An example I gave her is one family was real religious. The guy was even a pastor, and I didn't want to go there, but going there for that weekend, I learned how to um, fit into their family, do the things that they did. Maybe I didn't like it, but it opened me up to it. So I got informed of it. Maybe this is a path I want to go. Um, that was one family. The other family, extreme workout, like huge buff, always eating peanuts. Like, we gotta run today. We gotta run today. And I'm like, I just want to play my Xbox, and so there was huge differences, and that's good for a kid. Those for me, um, 14 through 20. So you're absorbing so much information, and on the respite too, it, foster care really impacts your kids, your biological kids, and it's a huge break for them and the parents also. um so yeah, I think it's a really good thing. You should be doing it. Yes. Oh, yeah. S- Yep. So like my mom was just saying that um the way you approach it too is you're not just sending you off. Like this break is also for you and is for us, and that she also um knew where the kid was going, not just to a random home. Going somewhere that you know the people, you kind of know their behaviors. You know how your child's behavior is going to interact with their behavior, so they can be on the same page. And so the way you approach the respite too is also um, going to impact how the kid looks at respite. Is that right? That kind of okay. Yes. Yep. I seen my foster brother and sister also go to other places, so it just wasn't me getting moved to a different place. Yeah. So yes, my mom and dad have done foster care for 38 years. And how many kids have been through the home? 42. So this is long-term foster care. Um, yeah. Um, any questions? Anybody? Anything?
They watched us and they kind of bought in, but it also depended. And I told Amber last night that I'm learning. My daughter's 42 and my son is 40, that there were some negative things as well. But overall, Cole, I think they're pretty open with you, and it was a good thing. It taught them to share. It taught them to, I remember Ron going on the football field and our kids wondering why he did that. And he said, well, they don't have a parent that will go out there with them. And so it was a learning thing for them as well. Mhm.
Are there other questions in the room?
Um, so if you could hear my mom, she was saying how you kind of got worried about your other kids and maybe their faults. Maybe they do some things that are negative or could actually negative impact the foster kids that you bring in the house. But what helped at their house was the honesty. Maybe I knew Josh was out too late. Maybe I knew Summer didn't come home or something. And she would come home. It wasn't like her not to come home. But so it would be me and Josh and not come home. So the way you respond to the foster child in your house when they do something wrong, I think is very important. I was able to be very honest with Janet, my foster mom, because when I did do something wrong, depending what it was, okay, that like I stayed out too late, or I did this, and she'd be like, "Okay, it's done, it's over. Let's carry on. Drop it." So there was times like that. I mean, there was things that I did that had needed to be addressed, but the way you react to it made me be more honest with her. Okay, I can tell her the truth because um, I know it's not going to be the end of the world, and I know we're going to get through this, and I know she's not going to judge me after this. So that made a big difference. Um, and then another thing me and Amber, and this also reminds me of another thing me and Amber talked about is one thing I had then that I don't think you guys have now is the child being able to take not responsibility for their actions. What word am I looking for? Accountability. The accountability. And and what I was telling Amber is, for an example, I got in trouble at home, and my dad had this log pile from that end of the building to that end of the building, probably waist high. And he got in trouble. He's like, "All right, move it from that side of the yard to the other." And 10 hours later, sweating, dying, um, I probably didn't do it again. But today, if you told your foster kid to go out and move that log pile, he's gonna tell somebody, then you're gonna get called, and then you're gonna be in a room meeting with somebody. And so that's one thing that um, I think is left out or isn't there as much anymore. I don't have the answer to fix that, but that was the best thing for me. It really was. Yes. Yes. Did I have a relationship with my biological mom? Yes, always. When I was institutionalized, when I was in foster care, um, Janet was really pro it, and not just pro it for me, but even so. Like I said from the get go, my mom was never a bad person, super nice. The only problem was that she treated me more like a friend than a mom, so I could kind of do what I wanted. Um, and so I kept in contact, and um, those first 2 years of me going in and out of institutions kind of broke her for the crying part of it. And then so when I got into foster care, she was like, "This is actually better." She was watching my friends who were back home getting locked up or whatever, so she was supportive of it. Um, but yeah, I kept in contact. I focused more on my stuff here, and I think a lot of kids do have the opportunity to keep in contact. I think the problem comes in is when the biological mother doesn't realize that it's better for the kid to be in foster care in a different environment, and then they start making their kid false or empty promises. Don't worry, you're coming back soon. Things are gonna change. This and that. That'll ruin a kid. I don't want to say like ruin a kid in a bad way, but the kid's gonna go to bed thinking about it every night, make different decisions. Um, One of the things. Yeah, yeah. My mom was saying that she thinks it's always right that a foster parent be supportive of a child who wants to see their parent, but never make them pick. Um, yeah. Yes. Um. So Oh, sorry. The question was that I had goals that I worked for, which made me want to work and better myself. And the question was, how did I come up with those goals, and what made me motivated to follow those goals? At that time, I think in your teens, you just want to be cool, right? Like you want to be the guy, or that was me, anyways. And so at the beginning of it, I wanted the car, I wanted the stereo, I wanted stuff like that. But I had to see it. Like when I went to high school, we had this kid who had this little Civic with this huge stereo, and I was like, oh, I want that. And so what I tried to did, so a part I left out when I was talking to you guys was for about a year and a half, I traveled to Mesa, Arizona, St. Louis, Missouri, spoke here a couple times to a lot of foster families because I was around 21, 22 when I was doing this, just because I was doing well. And so they wanted information and what could be done to improve foster care. And I did that for a year and a half. And doing that, a lot of foster parents brought their kids to talk to me. And so having somebody else that got in trouble to come and tell them, like, this is what you can have and this is what you can be. And you can take your negative. Like my negative was no supervision, my mom having parties, me doing what I want. That was a negative, but I learned how to talk to people. And so taking that negative and turning it into a positive. And so if you have somebody that they can look up to or find, I think that really helps with goal setting. And did I answer that? Okay. I do have a little bit of ADHD, so I want to tell you guys how good of a job I did. Kind of tell my life story, because like when I talked about like Home on the Range, I really wanted to go into detail about Home on the Range, and so what I do now, now I am like a crane operator. So I'm a crane operator for Northwest Contracting. Um, I have been a crane operator since 2010, or no, 2008. Yeah, yeah, the joysticks and the buttons. Um, I do that. I love it. I build massive buildings and schools. I'm actually starting the next elementary up here in 2 months. And so I've been doing that. I've been in construction my whole time. So like I said before, I had ADHD. I couldn't sit still. Even though I did graduate college with like a 3.8 GPA. I mean, I did pretty good. But I didn't want to be inside. So I did construction, and I started off as a welder. And then I was like, I don't want to do that because that's lifting heavy metal all the time. So I became an operator. And then I was like, this is cool, but I want to be an operator that does even less. So then I went to a crane operator. And I think no matter in the job market out there, there's always somewhere that you can go just to find your personal needs. Yeah, I do that. And then my wife back there, she is a nurse at Bone and Joint. And so, yeah, I was a sophomore and she was a junior. Or no, I mean, I was a junior and she was a sophomore. And we've been together for 23 years. Once you hit that 20, yeah, but so that after 20, I was like, there's no need. I don't know. Is there anything? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes. That so you're 100% right. Like I worked harder because I came from nothing, and nowadays it's harder because some of these kids or families, kids are coming away from getting more stuff. Things are getting handed out easier. Like I said, I lived in a trailer with no heat. I was very motivated not to be where I started from, and also to provide twice as much than what I got. And what to do there, you know. Yeah. No, but so if your kid likes fast cars, take him to a race. I mean, if your kid likes music, take him to that concert he wants to go to. Maybe you don't like it. Um, maybe it's I take him. uh, be interested. So one more quick thing. Um, with Ron and Jenna, my foster parents, I was in the cars. I had a 1992 Acura, and I tore the engine out of it and ordered an engine from Japan to put in this thing. Okay, I've never done anything like that in my life. I had no mechanical skills, and my parents, my foster parents, parked both their vehicles outside the garage, and I had that garage for what, 3 months, probably, with that car on racks. I got it fixed and out of there. But like I said before, if my own daughter was like, "You got to park your car outside for 3 months," no, not happening. So if you if your kid has an interest, if the foster child or your biological child has an interest in something, even if it sounds foolish, um, after that project, I've never been afraid to tackle anything. And I never would have had the opportunity to do that if they didn't give up their garage and let me spend my money on yen. You guys know what yen is, the Japanese currency to order an engine? Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. I don't. Well, thank you very much for listening to me, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.